welcome to A Taste for the Road. My name is Scott. So today we're in the Mazda Miata, and specifically the very first generation, known internally as the NA model. This one is on a third ownership, 73,000 miles, and is really in very lovely condition. So this little red bundle of joy produces about 116 horsepower and 100 foot-pounds of torque, which was good for the time, but pretty modest by today's standards. But it's only hauling around about 2,000 pounds, or about a ton. And it's only from stem to stern about 155 inches, which for context, the current generation C-Class sedan that's available in global markets is 30 inches longer than this car. And even the current generation Miata, the ND, as it's known, is actually 1.3 inches shorter than this car, although it is wider by a couple of inches for safety, crash, and airbag, side airbag protection and so forth. So it's a pretty tiny car, but I think it's admirable that Mazda, throughout all of this period, this is a 29-year-old car, excuse me, that it's really stuck to its guns and that it hasn't created something that has over time just gotten so much bigger and so much heavier. And that really should be admired. So what we're going to be doing today is reviewing this, but also spending some time heading up to Frederick, Maryland, up to Cafe Nola, which is a lovely coffee shop, although they do breakfast, lunch, dinner, actually music in the evening, and are open quite late. We're going to focus on probably, I think, maybe today a cappuccino or a latte. I'm not quite sure. For those of you who enjoy a little bit of history, along with our journeying, Frederick started off as a market town, back in the early 1800s. Still has a thriving downtown and historic district where we'll be today. Interesting little factoid about Frederick, Maryland is that in July of 1864, during the end of our final year, really, of our Civil War here in the States, Confederate forces actually took the small city over and demanded a ransom, or really extortion, of $200,000 so they wouldn't burn the entire place down to the ground. City residents and 5 banks actually came up with the $200,000, which in today's money is probably about 3.1 or so, $3.2 million. And they paid them, and the city was spared. The interesting piece is that it took until 1951 for them to go ahead and pay that note off, those borrowed funds. So let's go ahead and head up due north and west, head up over to Frederick, and stop by Cafe Nola, have something nice and warm to drink as it's quite chilly today, and then head up into the Catoctin Mountains, do a proper review of this, enjoy it, and then summarize later on this afternoon. So let's head due north. So that was a delightful latte that I had at Cafe Nola. I'll expand upon it in the review, but there was lots of chocolate involved, so that hit the spot today as it's quite chilly, and the latte was nice and hot. So I think, as an owner, if you're an owner or a driver of one of these, such as I am today, really it just puts a happy smile on your face. It's something that really I think communicates that you don't need to be the biggest or be the loudest in terms of cars, that you really have your priorities straight and everything's kind of harmonious in the world, which is a really nice experience to feel. And as a product from Mazda, I think it really does communicate, even in this original form, that they have their priorities straight too, and that it really does allow you to go ahead and enjoy this car without really having to be right on top of it all the time, that you can relax and enjoy it, but if you want to be on it, you can. And that it's interesting that Mazda has taken this car and gone ahead and injected its ethos and its focus, if you will, its joie de vivre, if you want to call it that, into other products, whether it's their SUVs or their CUVs. And that's really very unusual, that you would see a large firm selling as much metal as it possibly can on a global basis do that. It really, again, communicates, I think anyway, to the ethos and the real value behind this car to not just Mazda, but all of their products. Excuse me. And I think, again, on a day like today where it's pretty chilly, it's still a very enjoyable device to actually spend time on these back roads here as I wind my way up into the Catoctin Mountains. The noise is pretty nice. It's got a nice little raspiness to it. I'm not sure if you can hear it with some of the otherwise ambient noise around. The suspension also has some real compliance. It's very clear this is for road use principally, and it really does. It even now 29 years on, it really does go ahead and soak up those bumps, which is a wonderful thing on a day like today here on the back roads of, like I said, the Catoctin Mountains. The plastics are really pretty nice overall. There's a little bit of cush on the dash. The door cards here really are quite soft. The plastics here in the middle around the center console, they're a bit tough, a bit hard. But again, for a 28-year-old car and for the period in which this car was made and its obvious competition at the time, it's really quite nice. And in excellent condition as well, which is really wonderful. The ergonomics, no surprise, are really very good. Everything is very close at hand. You're not that far away, even for me as someone who's on the smaller side, let alone if you've got someone who is a little bit larger. They can easily reach. I can almost reach to the doors across to the other side, which is, again, really nice for opening and closing or rolling or up or down a window. The buffeting is pretty good. I do feel a little bit on my head, but it's a convertible after all. You would expect that there'd be some pushing around that doesn't have a windscreen or anything, and I don't think really needs it, given again the focus of this particular car. Is it a 10/10s car out of the box? I don't really think so, but a lot of folks really love to track this thing, and with a few mods, as we all know, it really does a great job in that particular department. I think really for me, it's about the liveliness at any speed. It's really just kind of up on its toes. It's really enjoying following along as we are here today with some nice roads. They're in pretty good condition. I haven't yet found it has gotten out of balance, even on some pockmarked roads that I was traveling on earlier when the camera was off. And it really does. It helps just kind of, you get a feel and get a rhythm and a flow for things that other cars, even much more expensive ones, don't really give you on a consistent basis. I think as a driving experience, it's a really good one, actually, even in 28, 29 years on. There's just a flow and a feel to this thing that really does translate well, even with all of the changes that have come down over the intervening years, and that's really impressive. It's a car that celebrates what's right about the world, and it makes you feel pretty special. Makes other people feel pretty special too. Today's been pretty cold. I've been out with the top down. Folks have been looking at me a little bit funny, but always with a smile. And I do wonder whether if I was in something much more expensive, whether people would give me the same reaction or not. And I'm guessing that they would not. And so I think that too is a way of sharing the happiness and the fun that is this vehicle really is enormously important. Something else that's really noteworthy today, given that the temperature started this morning around 17 degrees or about -8 in new money. We're now at about 26 degrees or so, maybe closer to 28. Not that I can really tell the difference, is the heater. It's an absolute beast, which I did not expect today, and is definitely very much appreciated to try and keep me warm in my feet. Bottom half, the top half not quite so much, but with the top up, as I have used it a little bit here, it absolutely warms this cabin up just like that, which is really just a wonderful thing on a day like today, with autumn having galloped across the top half of the planet the way that it has, and our Canadian friends having sent us some real Arctic chills here for what is today the day after Thanksgiving. So the heater, definitely a huge thumbs up. What's surprising a bit too is for an engine that is as small as it is and with a lighter flywheel or a small flywheel, it's actually got quite a decent amount of engine braking, which I did not expect, and has been welcome. It's nice to kind of feel that reciprocating mass kind of help slow you down at times when you're coming to a stop, or downshifting when you're going to go head into a corner. Definitely one of those experiences that I enjoy, much like with some motorcycles that I've ridden, and that, you know, again, just kind of give you that feel of weight transfer and of strength and power. You know, the inputs here, really quite well judged, you know, for a car that I wasn't sure what to expect. You know, the steering inputs versus the shift and so forth has really been very balanced all the way around. The inputs for throttle, for brake, etc., just all very much on the same playing field, and it's just wonderful to see that. It's almost, and I don't want to push it too far, but it is somewhat 911-like in that all of the inputs and where you're seated, everything is just so readily at hand, and it's just tuned in. It's tuned in a way that I think a lot of other cars, even those much more expensive than this one or the new one, obviously, really just don't quite get right. You know, when you, I think, delve more deeply into the driving experience, it's something that really kind of rewards you with yet more feedback and more energy, just more verve, if you will, that is, you know, really just very nice. Even again with the top down and it being pretty chilly, on a day like today, if it's still all these qualities shine through, it makes it mean that it's going to be something really even more special on a day when it's, you know, I don't know, in the low 70s, maybe 80 degrees in the spring, or perhaps in the autumn, when it's just a great temperature and everything's kind of comes together too with the environment. Although it's been great to smell some of the winter smells and other things too here, and actually see a little bit of snow. We had some snow last week, so it's definitely something that still shines through on a cold late autumn day that really feels like winter. So does the car have any downsides? I actually think it does have a couple. Number one on my list really has to do with its inability to fit folks who are above 6 feet. So I am 5'7" and obviously fit just fine. But if you are someone who is quite a bit taller than me, you're really not going to be able to fit in this comfortably and therefore be able to enjoy it. And I think one of the wonderful things about the Miata is its approachability, the fact that it really can or should be enjoyed or be able to be enjoyed by everybody, and that it's not just for a certain type of folk, either because of their size or because of their budget. And it's just therefore too bad that Mazda couldn't, over time, make it a little bit bigger on the inside for people to enjoy, for those who are, again, quite tall. I think number two for me, or really not for me, but for many other people, are the cup holders, which are a bit of an afterthought. They're still an afterthought in the new one, or the current generation one. And for those in particular who have a long commute, or really, you know, want to enjoy their coffee early in the morning, they can do it, but there are going to be a fair amount of compromises. And I think for number three, it's going to be something that for some this car has come in for some criticism, for years, which is that it doesn't have enough power. So it lacks power, it lacks panache, and it lacks just, you know, the fizz that other people think that it should simply have. And I frankly think it's a bunch of nonsense. First of all, this car wouldn't be any better with more power. Yes, I know over time they have increased the power. Folks have wanted that. But the reality is that this is an enormously well-balanced car just as it is, and should be enjoyed as such. I think for those who are looking for more prestige and more pizzazz, and hence think about stuff from elsewhere, Germany, Italy, etc., that this isn't just a cut-down Lotus or a cut-down Porsche. It's actually, I think, really compelling in its own right. And for those who think of other Japanese cars, you know, the Toyota Supra, at the time that this was released, was available. It slowly became bigger but more powerful, gained a lot of weight. but then it ghosted us. Came back, ghosted us again, and now it seems to be coming back again. We'll see how good it is ultimately. The Acura NSX, brilliant debut, thoroughly an amazing machine, stuck around a little bit too long, but now, then again, left us. Teased us to come back, then disappeared, teased us again, and ultimately did come back and couldn't be more irrelevant. What I really do admire about Mazda and about the Miata is that it has been a very consistent product and a very consistent car for the company and for everyone else. Whether you're looking for new, you're looking for used, there's something out there for everybody at many price points. And I really do appreciate and admire the company for, even despite selling in relatively small numbers over the intervening years after its initial excitement between 90 and 94 really, that there is still, A, demand for it, and B, the ethos of this car is still very much top of mind for Mazda, and that's rare. However, as you might expect, the real joys and the good qualities of this Miata, and I think really of any Miata, frankly, more than outweigh any of the shortcomings and the areas for improvement, and there always are some. So I think both in terms of its strengths, and to sum up a bit, it's really just the engine, the drivetrain, the position of where you are in the chassis, in the car. Just everything kind of works together in a way that is just still very relevant and enjoyable. Just a very satisfying car to drive, even in 26-degree temperatures with the heater blowing. It's just one of those things where I was initially a little bit concerned. So the backstory behind this car, a bit, is that 20 years ago, when I was commuting at a different job back and forth, I would about once a week head around a Chrysler dealership that is no longer with us anymore post-financial crisis. And one day in the autumn, there was a little red Miata, Gen 1, but I think it was a 93 or a 92, I can't quite remember. It was there for probably about 3 weeks and just didn't move. So impulsively, I stopped by one day, spoke with the salesman. He was very kind and let me take it out for an extended, test ride. I couldn't really afford it, to be honest, but it was just such an exciting thing to drive. Very lively, but not too jittery or anything like that. It really just was one of those situations where, it really just gelled for me. What is the essence of this being, the best kind of everyday roadster for really pretty much anyone? And it's always dangerous to go back and to see your heroes. And for me, the Miata is a bit of an everyday hero. They're obviously much more expensive cars. There are faster ones, certainly, and always will be. But I think as a set of attributes that a car can, offer something special to those who drive it, as well as to those who are, around it on a day like today, where I've received some smiles. A little of this too. That's okay. That's what it's about. But I think most importantly that it's something that makes everybody happy, and that it's something that anyone can really enjoy. So I think that really does sum up this Miata, and probably the others as well. So I hope you found this video helpful and enjoyable. Excuse me. Please give it a thumbs up if you can. Subscribe if you'd enjoy being alerted to new videos as they become available. There'll, of course, be a traditional written review of this and of NOLA's when this video goes ahead and drops on my website, Taste for the Road. If you don't have a Gmail account and you can't subscribe or you can't be notified to new videos, I do have a newsletter, so please go ahead and subscribe to that on tastefortheroad.com. I'd certainly be more than happy to send it to you. And when that becomes available, like I said. And so I think I will go ahead and sign off. Most importantly, go ahead and create your own adventure, whether it's in cold temperatures or not, and let us know what that adventure is. Please share it with us in the comments below. It's actually really important for the community, and I think we all would enjoy learning what you did and who you shared it with. So until the next video, I will sign off with you here. Ciao.